Greetings, Algo artisans. The Bitcoin ETF is a sell the news event. I told you. Just kidding. It might not be the case. It is on the short term. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about Ethereum. We're going to do it right now. First, if you could please go ahead and hit that like, subscribe, notification bell all on YouTube. If you're following this on X, please follow and hit notifications over there as well. That helps us get more content out to you. Okay, let's get into it. So Bitcoin's been falling since the ETF. The ETF announcement happened. Price went up to about $50,000 and has now fallen down to about $40,000, and it's done so rather quickly. I actually did a video in the past few days that did predict this, and I'm sure you're wondering, how is it that somebody like me, like a trader or an analyst, might be able to predict the future? Because if you can predict the future in trading, you can make money. If you know price is going to go up, price is going to go down, you can make trades, you can pull in income. And it's not the easiest thing to do, but it's actually a lot easier than you might think, right? You don't have to go to a fortune teller and, throw chicken bones. It's all very doable. You don't need anything complex. High school math's good enough, and you just have to learn how to build a trading method. And that's also called an algorithm, and you can do that at algofactory.tech. So with Bitcoin, I'm going to go ahead and show you a video just from the last few days that did predict what's happening now and what I think will happen in the future. And it's a super quick clip, so here we go. Wouldn't surprise me much to see Bitcoin go ahead and drop into that area. Now, once it drops into that area, we might see price start to develop a range. And that's the whole clip. I just wanted to put it up there so you can see that I know what I'm talking about, because that seems to be what's going on right now. Once it drops out, it'll find a healthy range, maybe in the $30,000 to $40,000 range in those handles in there somewhere. And once that happens, I do think it will go up after that. But how long is that range going to happen? It's hard to say. Now, the longer that range happens, the better I think alts will do in the short time. I think we might see a little bit of an alt party, right? And I'm going to be watching Ethereum closely because we're going to talk about Ethereum today as well. Ethereum is in the conversation for an ETF, and we're going to talk a little bit about how that looks, and we're also going to chart Ethereum in comparison to Bitcoin so that we can see how it might be an opportunity. Okay, so let's look at this article from CoinDesk. The reason Bitcoin is falling, I think, is twofold. I do think it was a sell the news event. I think a lot of institutional money knew that once the ETF was announced that a lot of retail money would buy in, and they would use that as what we call exit liquidity. And what that means is that the smart money knew that the ETF announcement was coming, and they needed to get out of the trade. But when you sell large amounts of anything, it pushes the price down on the market, and you start to cut into your profits, because if you want to sell Bitcoin at $50,000, but you have so much of it and everybody else is selling at the same time, then you might push that price down to $40,000 and you no longer have profits, because that's what happens when you sell. It pushes the price down. So the ETF was a nice way to get a lot of people to buy, and that way they had somebody to sell to at those higher numbers, right? If you don't have anybody to sell to, the price goes down. If you do have people to sell to, the price stays where it is, and you can exit at a stable price rather than pushing the price down, and that way you get more profit. And that's called exit liquidity, and that's pretty much what I think is going on with 401ks. People consistently putting money in 401ks, asleep at the wheel. The market goes up, they don't call their broker, they don't call their asset manager to take their money out of their 401ks. They just constantly pump money into these stocks, even as the top is in. And to me, I think that's designed to be exit liquidity. But now we're getting into conspiracy theories in the finance world. I think that's pretty much obvious. That being said, there's another reason why Bitcoin might be taking such a hard, fast fall. And it's pretty hard, it's pretty fast. It's not the hardest and fastest I've ever seen, but considering what's going on in the market and the time in the market that we're in, when price really should be pretty stable and or going up, this move from 50,000 to 40,000 was pretty strong. So we got an article here on CoinDesk that lines it out pretty well, and we're going to look at some Twitter announcements as well to quantify what this article says. But this article on CoinDesk says Grayscale's GBTC could see another $1.5 billion in sales from ARB traders, says JP Morgan. The bank estimated traders sunk about $3 billion into GBTC, looking for benefit from a closing of the fund's discount to NAV. NAV standing for nominal account value, I believe, is what that stands for. Or notional, nominal or notional. Here's the thing about it. So GBTC had a discount to NAV when Bitcoin is low. And then when Bitcoin got up high, it had a premium. So basically, you could sell GBTC and get a better deal than if you simply sold Bitcoin. However, that caused an arbitrage that caused this to fall, right? So people selling the Grayscale position caused Grayscale to have to sell their Bitcoin to redeem those people exiting Grayscale's product, right? So Grayscale is basically a company that holds a bunch of Bitcoin, and then people buy stock in that company. And then because of the way that company is set up, there is a bit more of a swing in the price. It's almost like a little bit of a leveraged version of Bitcoin in a certain way when it comes to the returns. It can be seen that way. So when Bitcoin was super low, GPTC was proportionally lower, right? And it had a lot more room to go up. And then when Bitcoin got high, GPTC had a premium to NAV. And so basically people were selling. However, when people sell a Grayscale position, Grayscale has to pay them. And in order to pay people, Grayscale has to sell their Bitcoin. That puts Bitcoin on the exchanges. And I believe they're selling their Bitcoin over on Coinbase. So it isn't like they're doing it necessarily quietly. You can sell a lot of Bitcoin in what's called an over-the-counter deal, where the deal is done privately and it doesn't hit the exchanges and it doesn't really affect the price necessarily. It can, but if the deal is private enough, really nobody knows about it. Anyway, in this case, that's not how it's working, because if we look at this bit from Alex Thorne, this tweet, it says, we're seeing significant Bitcoin trading volume now during US hours, particularly between 3 and 4 p.m. New York now during the ETF VIX, escalating into what has lately been a predictable Grayscale dump into the close. The game is evolving. And this was January 16th, which was right around that time of the ETF. I think it was the day of or the day after. And then we can move over to Woo Blockchain. I believe that's Willy Woo's Twitter channel. And it says Grayscale sent another 9,000 Bitcoin worth $385 million to a suspected Coinbase Prime deposit address 20 minutes ago. The currently marked Grayscale address still holds 617,000 Bitcoin worth about 22 billion. 9,000 Bitcoin worth $385 million. That is significant. Is that enough to move markets? Oh, I'm pretty sure it is. Bitcoin, as big as it is not that huge. I think Bitcoin's $1 trillion market cap, somewhere around there, within that order of magnitude, certainly. And that's a fair chunk of $1 billion. And Bitcoin is thinly traded. I think Novogratz said in an interview recently that 75% of people simply won't sell their Bitcoin. See, it's already a relatively thinly traded asset. You have a lot of believers. People look at Bitcoin like it's a religion. So even though it's $1 trillion asset, it might actually be effectively much smaller, because not very much of it is changing hands. So what is this? 38.5% of $1 billion can affect the price, especially when it goes onto such a public exchange like Coinbase Prime. And here's another one for prior tweet, 183 million. That was on January 12th, and this one's on January 16th. So Grayscale is getting rid of a lot of Bitcoin, and they have to sell their Bitcoin in order to pay the redemptions, right? People who are getting out of the Grayscale positions. So that is putting downward pressure on the Bitcoin price. It's gotta be. I'm still bullish though. We're gonna take a look right here at this clip from President Trump. Even though, look, I'm not gonna get political. Trump's Trump. I'm not. I don't care, man. I don't think problems can be fixed really from Washington. I think if anything, if Trump gets elected, he might be able to slow down a lot of the problems. But I think the machine is so big, Trump's just kind of a wrench in the works that may not stop the works. But if he is elected, and I'm kind of not even sure that that'll happen, but even if he is, he does put a bullish picture on Bitcoin. And even if he's not, I still am bullish on Bitcoin, but I did want to play this clip really quick because it's pretty bullish. Let's play it.
Tyranny, as your president, I will never allow the creation of a central bank digital currency. Do you know about that?
So what's going on here is that there's been a big talk about CBDCs, central bank digital currencies. It's a situation where they might be able to stop your money if they don't like what you said. Like, hey, you watched Joe Rogan, we're going to not let you spend your money. It's a privacy issue. It's a freedom issue. And Trump is against them. Trump used to be against Bitcoin. Now he seems to be for it, or at least not against it. So when you have big figures like that who used to talk trash on it, now they're kind of going for it. It does make me relatively bullish on Bitcoin, because he really was against it. He said, I don't like Bitcoin. I think it's basically, in so many words, he said, I think it's a scam. The dollar is what matters. And now it seems to be that he's going a different route, right? Before we move on, we are going to take a look at the current chart. Now, the current Bitcoin chart does have Bitcoin at the bottom of this range that we talked about in that video that I showed you earlier. And I can say that on the higher time frame, Bitcoin is bullish, but on sort of the weekly time frame, not this super high monthly time frame, but on time frames that matter, the daily and the weekly, I am seeing some bearishness. And what does that mean? Well, again, it was charted out in the prior video, but you can see price tried to break below this range that we had charted out. And I do think that price probably will do that. Whether or not it does it right now is a different case. I would not go short on Bitcoin until it breaks and closes below this on the daily, right? So this level is at $40,646 right at the bottom of this box. And I would not be going short until price breaks and closes below that on the daily. And because that is a pretty tight range, I probably even so would be careful in going short, because there is liquidity right here. Now, I think it'll be attracted to that liquidity, but once it goes farther past that liquidity, it may not be able to go down much further. So I would be very careful shorting. Certainly not going to do it until price breaks below this $40,600 range. And my algos have to agree with it as well. That's just a quick chart on Bitcoin. We're going to move on and talk about Ethereum. First thing I want to do is go to this article on the block. And it says here that SEC delays decision on Fidelity's proposed spot Ethereum ETF to March. So the SEC seems to be slow walking any more crypto ETFs. We already know that Gensler is not a big fan. I am optimistic on the Ethereum ETF. And the reason I am is because Ethereum has a lot of very important people who own it. I think it has the blessing, and I think it's had it for some time. And I think the evidence of that is what happened with the SEC lawsuit against XRP that was recently lost essentially by the SEC. It's a little more complex than that, but essentially XRP won, SEC lost. Gensler probably didn't like it, or at least he's saying he doesn't like it, just like he didn't like the ETF. So it seems as if he's being pushed down a path with which he may not agree, and that shows you that the greater powers might like crypto. And when the XRP lawsuit happened, it is said that some of the people at the SEC who started that lawsuit and spearheaded it were actually members of the Ethereum Foundation. And I want to tell you something about a little bit of bias over there at the SEC, at least at that time. I don't know how it is now, and I really didn't know how it was then. I'm just telling you that those individuals were there and that happened. You can make the conclusions yourself. It does say here, though, on the block article, the Securities and Exchange Commission delayed its deadline to make a decision on Friday's proposal for a spot Ethereum exchange-traded fund until March 5th, according to a filing on Thursday. The commission finds it appropriate to designate a longer period within which to take action on the proposed rule change so that it has sufficient time to consider the proposed rule change and the issues raised therein, said the SEC. So is it true that they're that concerned or not? Delay had been expected. I think they're just going to slow walk anything and everything. And it might be horse trading in the background. It might be that they actually need to do what they say that they are doing, rule changes and so on and so forth. Who knows what it really is, but we do know it's been delayed. And I do think, though, Ethereum is the next choice. I think that's pretty clear. I don't think anybody disputes that. It's a question of when is it going to happen. And if they're delaying a decision towards March, are they going to delay it further and further and further? Well, I'm going to tell you what I think. Typically, on a halving year, Bitcoin compresses right after the actual halving, which is in April. And then after the halving, for anywhere from a month to like a couple months, price in crypto goes down. It'll run up to the halving, and then it kind of goes down afterwards. And then, say, towards the middle of the end of the summer, that is when crypto begins to go up again. It may be that they want to delay so that they can play along with the price action. And I can almost guarantee you so many decisions are like this. Now, I don't know this to be sure, but I am 100% convinced that so many decisions in markets have to do when price is at a very critical point, right? Perhaps price went all the way up and it's gone as high as they could possibly push it, and then they make a decision, and then price can go down with a lot of pressure, and that volatility can make people money, especially those who know it's going to happen ahead of time. For example, Bitcoin ETF, right? So typically prior to a halving year, starting in October, maybe September, price goes up for Bitcoin, and it peaks out right around December. In this case, they pushed it through January, and then it goes down for a while, typically. So it just so happens that they put the ETF decision at the top of that. I don't see that to be a coincidence. I see it to be planned. I don't know that it's true, just my guess, and I think the same is happening here. I think they'll make a decision on the ETF when Ethereum is at a very critical point, whether it's right about to fall really hard or right about to rise really hard. So I'm going to keep my eye on the charts, and we'll see what happens with that. And we're going to take a look at the chart on this, by the way. Bitcoin correlation with Ether hits lowest levels since 2021. Okay, so what it says here is Bitcoin's rolling 60-day correlation with Ether has fallen below 70% for the first time since early 2021, according to Kaiko's data. The weakening correlation comes amid the launch of spot Bitcoin ETFs in the US, with speculation that potential spot Ether ETF approvals are next. Bitcoin's rolling 60-day correlation has fallen below. Okay, we're just repeating the same thing over and over. We'll skip. Okay, here's a chart right here, the correlation with Ether, and it looks like the correlation is falling. It was rising since 2017. It stayed pretty stable with the exception of the COVID crash. It just kind of rotated between, say, 0.7 and 1. And the average was 0.7 over this whole chart, but more recently, I bet you the average was closer to 0.8, 0.85, okay? And in this case, we're looking at dump, right? We're looking at a fall right here over that 60-day correlation. And this, they're saying, has to do with the ETF announcement. Now, what is actually more interesting to me is the price of Ethereum against Bitcoin. We're going to look at that in the chart right now. So we're going to go to ETHBTC, and I'm going to go to a higher time frame. There's going to be a lot of stuff on the chart. Don't let it scare you, I can tell you that right now, based on a high time frame algorithm, the Ethereum to Bitcoin chart here, this is the price of Ethereum in terms of Bitcoin, right? I think this is going to go up, and I think it's going to go up pretty hard. It came across a support, right? I'm going to zoom in on this just a little bit. So it came across this support right here, and it bounced off of that. And it looks to me like this is getting ready to hike up a little bit, okay? Now, Ethereum to Bitcoin headed up pretty hard from 2020 through 2022 during the bull market. And then Ethereum to Bitcoin fell during the bear market. So Ethereum is more or less acting, again, as kind of a leveraged version of Bitcoin in a way. If I were to chart the Bitcoin price, I'll overlay Bitcoin on top of this just right now to see if there's actually correlation. Let's put Bitcoin on here with the new price scale. You can see here that this Ethereum to Bitcoin price also follows the general Bitcoin price to a degree. There is a bit of divergence here from October 22 until now. That's actually in the middle of the bear, right? And there was a similar divergence here in the middle of the bear back in 2019 as well. So it doesn't diverge all the time, but during, I think, times of volatility, it tends to go along with it. So let's erase this now. What I'm seeing is a hike in the price of Ethereum coming, and it's a hike in comparison to Bitcoin. So I think Bitcoin's going to calm down over the next few months, and Ethereum is going to go up. And where do I think it's going to go? Pretty bullish on the monthly. And it looks like I had some targets already at 2,890 and 3,300. I think I made this, I would like to say that I predicted that, but I think that's actually not been there that long. I think I was just drawing arrows as to what had happened, right? So in this case, based on the trajectory of Bitcoin, of Ethereum right now, let's just do a Fibonacci extension real quick. This Fibonacci extension is a tool that you'll see me do on these charts from time to time. And if you are interested in this, please go over to algofactory.tech and I can show you how I do these things. It's a very simple tool to use, and it's a good way to just see if you can develop some form of correlation. To develop some form of price target estimation. Okay, so we've already passed the 272. The 618 is up here. Now there are some old resistances, right? So there's a resistance up here from back in 2022 at about 3,000, it's 2,950. And there is a resistance at 3,560, that's 3,500, actually 3,590. So about $3,600. And so basically, I would probably think that Ethereum is going to make it up to about 3,000. And as it gets to 3,000, and it might take a couple months, but as it does get to 3,000, I think that's when we might see that ETF happen. Because I don't think it's ready for the big bull yet. And the halving is only in a couple months. So I think it's very possible for Ethereum to make its way to about 3,000. And I'm just shooting this out here. If I'm right, I'm right. It doesn't make that much of a difference in the way I play the game, but it might be that that's when we see the ETF announcement. It's either there or possibly up here. Wherever a big resistance is and wherever it's time for price to fall, I think that's where we're going to see the ETF happen, and I think price will fall at that time. So that's what I think is going to happen with Ethereum. So look, again, as I said before, if you like this content, please like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, share with your friends, and if you're following us on Twitter, then please follow my Twitter profile and enjoy and like the videos and comment. If you have any questions, let me know. I can actually answer questions. And right now, our live labs that we do are every weekday, and they start at 8:30 EST. And if you come on to the YouTube, and if I can get X to work, I'm going to start live streaming on X again. I was having a hard time doing that, but wherever you're watching us, X or YouTube, you can ask questions, and I will go ahead, if I have time, and answer them. I can do custom charting. I can answer any type of other questions that, I feel comfortable or confident answering. Our private members do have priority, so if they don't have their questions answered, I may not get to yours, but right now there has been time for that. So please come on over, watch us. We hope to see you soon. www.algofactory.tech. Trade your job, upgrade your life. All right, hope you enjoyed the show. Please like, subscribe, hit that notification bell. On the screen there, you can see our website, algofactory.tech. Tap that QR code to take you straight there. I'm also very active on X. That's algo_factory777. We got TikTok and Rumble. In the meantime, we hope to see you over at the website. Come on over, trade your job, upgrade your life. We'll see you there.